for lights. Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Your Illini Nation pregame show, Big Ten Tournament quarterfinal edition. Andy Olson joined by Illini Inquirer's Derek Piper for an exciting day of 4 Big Ten games here at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Inside the lobby here at the Gainbridge, it's a lot of fans already packing themselves in as tip-off is set here in about 75 minutes or so. We're getting close. We're going to count you down and get you set for the game today between the number 1 seeded Illinois Fighting Illini and the number 9 seed Indiana Hoosiers. I think we start there, Derek. Illinois finding out who they're playing yesterday after Indiana comes back from down 17 points, and what a game it was, because it looked like that was going to be Michigan's game all the way until TJD and the rest of the Hoosiers just got going, and they put them to bed in the end.
A game they absolutely needed as they're fighting for their NCAA tournament lives. I know that Joe Lunardi, as of this morning, has Indiana as literally the last team in the field and a chance to really go to sleep at night on Saturday if they're able to beat Illinois and feel good about where they're going to stand, ultimately probably maybe even out of the play-in game, which would be certainly big for Mike Woodson and company. Illinois trying to spoil that, though, trying to make Indiana sweat it out a little bit, and a chance for Illinois to boost its tourney stock right now, sitting on that 4 seed line. I know Brad Evans has them as a 3, and if they win a game or two, probably sitting in that 3 range, potentially getting to Sunday, maybe a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament, and a chance to be one of only 3 teams to win back-to-back Big Ten tournament championships. So a lot on the line, a rivalry game, and excited for some early morning hoops here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, we can start with that holistic take about going back-to-back, what Illinois is trying to do, which has only been done 3 times. Michigan State, 99 and 2000, Ohio State, 2010, 2011. Most recently, Michigan, 2017, 2018. One of those years was when they were the 8th seed, had the whole incident on the runway, and they were able to win against Illinois in some practice jerseys, but we won't talk about that. Illinois now trying to go back-to-back, 21 and 22. And last year they put so much emphasis into winning that Big Ten tournament title, and they've even come out since then and talking with us, the media, that maybe they put too much fuel in the tank in that particular area, because when they got to the NCAA tournament, they came out flat, and they talked about, they wouldn't do that this time around. And they come off a huge celebration, a huge emotional high, winning that regular season title on Sunday. Now they have to get back and get ready for this one. And Derek, I mean, how important do you think that is really keeping your emotions in check at this time of year, not getting too high, not getting too low?
Yeah, it's very important. It's a very interesting dynamic with Illinois as they're trying to balance, okay, we want to continue to further our NCAA tournament stock, and coming off, like you said, a game on Sunday where you storm the court, just the atmosphere, you're cutting down the nets and everything, and how satisfying that was and how much they poured into that game. And then to try to turn around and get up for this one, an early morning tip. We'll be reminiscent a little bit of, let's be honest, Loyola in this building when it was an early morning game, and we'll see maybe if that's a motivating factor. But kind of that balance of, do we want to win this whole thing? They're not trying to lose or anything by any estimation, but they ultimately want to save it for the NCAA tournament. But I think that it is important, in my estimation. I would imagine they feel the same way, of trying to, number one, peak at the right time, trying to feel like you're playing your best basketball, ride some momentum into the NCAA tournament. And also, if you can get off that 4 line, knowing that in the second round, based on that setup, you got the 4 or 5. I know the 12 is usually dangerous in terms of that matchup, and then seeing a 1 seed in the Sweet 16 potentially. So if you can get to the 3 line, maybe even the 2, you're just setting yourself up for a little bit of an easier path for a deeper run. So, we'll see. I think that motivation early on is going to be an interesting thing to gauge with Illinois, their intensity versus Indiana, who should come out with their hair on fire. But they've said all the right things. Trent Frazier said, hey, we're going into postseason mode. We're trying to think as a team that is trying not to lose again as we go out the rest of the way. So we'll see their type of motivation and fire as they take the court this morning.
Yeah, Illinois could have as many as 9 games left this season, or as few as 2 games left this season. It's really, we have to see how it goes. I'd imagine both of us think it'll be more than 2, but as you mentioned, Trent Frazier, the entire team knows that at any moment, the game that they're playing could be their last one of the season. So they got to have that kind of, that in the back of their mind, that
it's urgency.
Urgency, yeah, exactly. And all right, let's break down the last time these 2 teams played. Only played once this season. Illinois got the best of Indiana. One of the worst losses for the Hoosiers in Assembly Hall as Illinois won by 17 points. Kofi Coburn and Trent Frazier combined for 40 in that game. And as we were talking before this, Derek, probably the more important stat, Trace Jackson Davis, only 6 points in the last time out against the Illini. How do you think Illinois plays it out from here? Do they go back on that game plan a little bit, or has Indiana grown since then? Maybe a different team need, especially with the momentum they're playing with right now, maybe need a different game plan.
Yeah, I think that you're going to hope that something similar plays out and that Kofi's physicality will bother Trace. And we've seen that pop up in a couple of the matchups over the course of their careers. They've had some pretty good battles, even going back to last year in Bloomington, where Trace ends up dunking on Kofi Coleman, and that gets him going. Trace had a nice game. I think he had 19 points and a nice stat line on the rebounding front as well. But this time around in Bloomington, for Trace to only have 6 points, for him to get in early foul trouble, that certainly hurt the Hoosiers. Actually, in terms of where they were in the game, they maybe had a slight lead at halftime, I think. It really was a dominant second half for Illinois that pushed them over the edge. The three-point shooting got going. Kofi was having his way inside, and Trace just wasn't able to score on him in that type of capacity. I think Indiana will try to utilize Trace's mobility a little bit more against Kofi, see if they can put him on the move, pick up some fouls, and then Illinois is going to hope that they shoot the three well. The difference, I think, for Indiana is that their three-point shooting, which was pretty good, especially down the stretch yesterday. They ended up going 8 for 15 from three. Xavier Johnson shot it better. Miller Kopp shot it better here of late. Can they get that to go along with Trace, with Race Thompson, who's been kind of a matchup problem for Illinois? Of course, the counter for the Illini is that now Coleman Hawkins is in a whole lot different space than he was about a month ago. So that's kind of the counter action going there. But I think from Illinois' standpoint, you're going to just try to play intense defense, really make things hard on Indiana, who can be offensively challenged, and then to have the three-point shooting surrounding Kofi. That's kind of the game plan that they had. It worked out in Bloomington, and that's really the recipe to success for them.
Let's talk about the turnaround at Coleman Hawkins. I can't really pinpoint what game it was, or even what game that his season kind of soured after the really good start that he had. I think back to the game against Rutgers when he shut down Ron Harper Jr. Just had this kind of funk in the middle of the year. Now he's come out of that, has been really important against teams like, specifically Iowa had a really good run down the stretch, in Penn State as well. A few rebounds, a few blocks that have been really important to getting Illinois wins down the stretch here. And Andre Curbelo also coming into his own. It seemed like that game on Sunday against the Hawkeyes really, again, showing a little bit of maybe what fans were expecting from him. Derek, how important is it, that those two guys have started to find their roles, and how important is that in, the team coming together really almost for the first time this whole season?
Yeah, I think those two are as important as any in terms of what you're trying to get out of this weekend. Of course, we're talking seeding and all that, but just in terms of the inside the team, the inner workings of having this team get to playing at their peak, which I don't think they've hits this season because of Curbelo's injuries and just trying to work through that, and Coleman, the way he's emerged. He had that lull there in the middle of the Big Ten season, but Hawkins over the last 5 or 6 games has really just continued to progress, and for him to play his best game probably as an Illini, I think that's really probably unquestionable against Iowa on Sunday, playing 35 minutes, really active on the glass, had a couple of blocks. It was his defense on Keegan Murray that was impressive, and you're hoping that translates if you're Illinois today on Race Thompson. And then to be able to even hit a three, he's shown some of those signs, hitting a step-back three on Hunter Dickinson in Ann Arbor. Yeah. So he's been able to play with a lot more confidence. He's earned more trust from the coaching staff. And to your point on Curbelo, still have those highs and lows where there are some of those head-scratching plays, like, what are you trying to do? He has you shaking your head a lot. Sometimes it's like, whoa, I cannot believe he just made that amazing play. And sometimes it's like, oh, Andre, let's dial that back a little bit. But that's just kind of him. And I look at Indiana. They were the #1 defensive efficiency team in league play this year, but one weak spot has been their pick-and-roll defense. Curbelo is very apt in that, being able to find shooters, being able to find Kofi on the roll and get to the rim, Trent Frazier as well. But if Andre can continue to limit the bad and play more on that good side and get back to where he was last year. Here in Indianapolis last year, in the Big Ten tournament, he was absolutely phenomenal. So if he can continue to inch towards that, I think that would be really important as they go into NCAA tournament time.
Yeah, and with Jacob Grandison still questionable for today, when we talked with Brad on Wednesday, he said he hadn't practiced yet, was getting fitted for a shoulder brace, kind of like the one that Trent Frazier has worn all year. But I can't imagine that he would play or even get back into the starting lineup having not practiced this whole week, or only getting one practice if that was yesterday when he finally made it back. We haven't talked with him to confirm that if he did make it back yet. So have to imagine Coleman Hawkins gets put back into the starting lineup here. RJ Melendez is nice to have back on the bench, another role player. Bosman's Verdonk, we're still seeing about if he's going to be playing in this one, coming out of the concussion protocols. And what we saw on Sunday, we mentioned Hawkins, the great performance against Iowa. Do you still Would you still feel comfortable with him in the starting lineup for the Illini in a kind of game like this? I mean, he didn't get that chance last year. This is a different animal in this kind of environment. It's going to be almost like an Indiana home game here, but this time it's 20,000 in the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. I mean, it's a lot of pressure in this one. You would still feel comfortable with the sophomore in there?
I do. I think with the way that he's playing, I think he's the best answer to play the 4 against Race Thompson. And you like, again, how he's been locked in defensively. But I think you make a good point, both with Coleman and RJ, and that's why there's the value of Grandison, not just beyond his experience. He obviously brings shot making, timely rebounding, but now that you've entered a new stage, does the pressure get to those guys, or do they rise to the occasion? I think that, to RJ Melendez's credit, like being thrown in Big Ten play with very little experience, I think he's responded well. He's stepped up and made shots. He's played with a lot of confidence. Can Coleman continue to build, or do you see maybe him try to do too much, knowing that there's a lot more at stake now? There's more pressure. This might have even like a bragging rights feel. You get the split fan bases here, which could be a lot of fun. But yeah, I feel good about Coleman there. It is a really key matchup because Race in the past has hurt Illinois. He had 13 points on 13 shots this past year, so I think you'll live with that. But he had a huge game against them last year in Bloomington. His activity on the glass is a really big thing. He's very physical. He has a high motor. He can block some shots. So being able to combat that with someone like Coleman, who obviously has the length that makes tough on Race, who can play up to his motor and go on the glass, is important too. So I feel pretty comfortable until we see something elsewhere in terms of him not living up to that potential. But if Grandison's out, you kind of just got to roll with it.
Yeah, you bring up the bragging rights feel about this. Brad Underwood does have a clause in his contract. He gets bonuses anytime they beat Indiana. I'm assuming that also includes the Big Ten tournament, so he's definitely going to want to win this one as well. I'm getting a thumbs up from Brett Behrens that is the case. He's the one who tweeted out the contract details, so he would know. Let's talk about the guard matchup as well, and specifically shooting from the outside. We've seen so far in this tournament through the first few days, if you can get that outside shot going, you have a good chance to win this one. I'm talking specifically about Iowa, who hit 19 three-pointers against Northwestern. Credit to the Wildcats. I mean, they did score. I believe it was 74 in that one, and still ended up losing that one by, what? That has to be about 40 points at that point. And if you can get it going inside the Fieldhouse, and I don't know what that's like as a player. Maybe it's not as easy. I mean, you're playing in a different kind of environment here, that NBA setting. But with Alfonso Plummer, Trent Frazier, of course, you lose Jacob Grandison, but you have a guy coming off the bench like RJ Melendez who maybe can make some shots from outside. How important is that for Illinois to get that perimeter shot going, specifically in this kind of environment? Because if you get those points early, you feel hot from there early. I feel like that's good momentum, especially against an Indiana team who is probably going to have all the momentum starting in this one.
Absolutely. It is very important, and I think that when you look at Indiana, they have guarded the 2 very well, and with Trace's length, and if you give them the ability to double Kofi, if you give them confidence that they can leave him, particularly with Race Thompson, and we saw the way Ohio State defended Kofi, Penn State really leaving guys open on the perimeter to go send that extra help to the paint. If you're hitting threes, that makes that a tougher decision, or a decision you can make them pay for. So being able to hit from the outside really allows this offense to be that more lethal. I look for Trent Frazier to be more aggressive in this game. That's kind of been a common narrative here down the stretch. He had a great game against Indiana, put up 23 points and hit a couple of those dagger threes there in the second half to kind of quiet them. So if he can get going and be that assertive Trent Frazier, I certainly think that would help Illinois offensively elevate a little bit more. Alfonso Plummer, we know, can reel them off in a hurry, 3-4 threes in the span of 5 or 6 minutes. So if they can take a page out of Iowa's book, I mean, the team hit 16 threes and still had 10 minutes left in that game. That was just a ridiculous offensive display. You win this game, maybe Iowa takes care of Rutgers, and I would expect that to be a matchup. You can't look ahead, and if you do shoot the 3, though, you should be in a pretty good spot.
You brought up, I mean, the three-pointers, and, that could be what wins them the game. Illinois has found so many different ways to win this year. I mean, I go back to all these different games. The first time they played Michigan State without Kofi. The daggers, the second time against Michigan State from Trent. I mean, he's had a few of them this year. I can name off a couple more. The win against Iowa on Sunday, just being able to hold on just barely in that one. What will be the way that they win this one today if they do win for Illinois? What do they have to do well to take this one and move on to the semifinals on Saturday?
I really think it's just about intensity and matching Indiana's effort, knowing that they're going to come out with a lot of momentum, feeling very good about themselves after the Michigan win, being very a hungry team. If Illinois is sluggish, if they're getting beat on the effort plays, I know you go back to the Penn State game, which that one was dicey for a while, and Brad said we were flat. Hey, we just didn't come to play, and if that's the case today, I would be worried about Illinois being able to get that done. I think that if Illinois can weather that storm early from Indiana and kind of be able to trade punches and have their own effort, I ultimately think that Illinois' offensive talent will just outplay Indiana. I think that you give respect to the Hoosiers, and if Trace plays well and if they have some of their shooting come around, don't get me wrong, this will be a tough game, but I really think it is about playing all out, making sure that there's no disparity in offensive rebounds or anything like that. That's kind of the key for me, and I just kind of let Kofi do his thing and expect your guard play, in my opinion, which is a pretty clear advantage over Indiana's, to just kind of let that play out.
Kofi versus Trace today is going to be such a fun matchup. It's going to be one that I'm probably watching the most in signs. I mean, especially because of the big win that Kofi got earlier this season in Bloomington against him. So I imagine Trace Jackson-Davis, especially how we turned it on yesterday. In that second half, he played like a first-team All-Big Ten teamer. I mean, he was so good against Michigan. I think he's the reason why the Hoosiers ended up winning that game. So I'm sure he's feeling some of that and wants a little bit of revenge today against Kofi. Derek, let's get your final thoughts and your prediction here as we're just under an hour away from tip-off here from Indianapolis. Who do you think is going to win this one?
And to your last point, Trace got to be looking for a lot of revenge. Has yet to beat Illinois and Kofi during his career. Illinois has won the last 4 in this series. I expect them to win their 5th. I think that Indiana will have the energy early. I think that I could see Illinois playing from behind a little bit through the first half, but ultimately I think that they have more offensive talent. I think Kofi ultimately wins the matchup inside, and Illinois has more shot making. Indiana has struggled with their guard play and having enough around Trace. I have a low-scoring game, kind of a slug-it-out affair here. Illinois 68, Indiana 60 as Illinois moves on to the semis.
Yeah, I have something similar. I'm with you. I think Illinois gets this one done. It's certainly not in the bag yet. I mean, any game that you play at this time of year and in this month specifically is going to be a hard-fought win, and Illinois has talked about that all week in preparation, wanting to bring that energy, needing to play hard, because even if you're not playing well, if you play hard, if you play with energy, you have a chance to win it in the end. I'm going to go pretty similar score to you, but I had this in my mind before you said anything. I'm going to go 70-65. I think it's a 5-point win for Illinois. Definitely going to be close. Indiana's going to play them close down the stretch. Should be a really fun one to watch, and I know that we're excited to get to our seats and watch this one. I'm sure a lot of Illini fans are getting ready to get to their seats too. I see so many orange and blue shirts in the crowd. There's a little ILL chant going on while you were talking before, Derek. So certainly this is going to be a fun one for fans here too. Should be a battle competition. Who's going to be louder, I imagine, in the stands for this one, because almost a home game for Indiana, but Champaign's only 2 hours away from here, so I think there's going to be big fan bases from both sides here at the Gainbridge Fieldhouse. All right, Derek, in that hour before tip-off, what can people read at IlliniInquirer.com to get themselves ready?
I got my full breakdown of the matchup, my 3 keys and a pick. You can read that before tip-off. I also have an update on James Brown, the 5-star sophomore out of St. Rita who visited this past weekend for the Illinois-Iowa game, giving his thoughts on the program. Teammate Merez Johnson already in his ear about trying to come to Illinois. Jeremy, Joey, and I are here for the post-game reaction analysis. Check us out. And podcasts. You guys know the deal.
You guys know the deal, 2 podcasts. Yeah, be sure to check out Derek and the Illini Inquirer team. Hopefully we can see you here tomorrow, Derek, with another win. We should be here bright and early again.
Sounds good, man.
Should be fun. All right, enjoy the game, everyone. This one tipping off at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. If you're in the Eastern Time Zone, that'll be 11:30, of course, here in Indianapolis. On Big Ten Network, be sure to tune in. Illinois, Indiana winner moves on to the semifinals on Saturday. They either get Iowa or Rutgers. That game, of course, being played after. We have all the coverage online, on air, after the game on WCIA, WCIA.com. Don't forget our Facebook and Twitter channels as well. Wherever you're watching this, we'll have all the coverage there as well. So be sure to tune in to that. So for Derek, I'm Andy. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, and enjoy the game.